Welcome back, and as long as you're here we can talk about 3D printing. I like to talk about that, and I like 3D printing. I think it's fun, and I think it's rewarding, and I think it's pretty damn cool. My printers here are gonna start printing two buildings from 3D layered scenery. A big building called the City Hall. I think it's a 130 hours of printing before that's finished, so I'm just starting it now, and yeah, I'm gonna let it go over the night and we'll see what happens. Here I've got some stuff I printed and some which I've painted, and I'm gonna show you how to paint some of these ruins pretty fast, 4 at a time. Let's go! I went outside since the weather was good, and I put up a old cardboard box to protect my table, and I sprayed everything with Chaos black spray to get a good undercoat, and then some Mechanica standard gray spray for all the stone parts. I think that's a good starting point. Chose Mephiston red for all the tiles on the roofs, which also works, and the Fang I use mostly for shingles, so that works fine. I chose some Sandry dust spray for all the parts where I have wood and mortar, and actually managed to spray parts with that were previously sprayed with another paint. If you're careful and you respray, sometimes you can actually get a good result from this. So this is what it looks like when it's spray painted, just a base coat. I then picked out the airbrush, and I painted all the wood parts with burnt umber from Vallejo Air Range, and actually you don't have to be too careful here, because you're gonna paint all the mortar stuff with the white later on. But try to be as neat as you can, but don't let it take forever, since I mean this is kind of a speed paint to get a lot of terrain done in a short while. So but yeah, it's kind of fun actually. And my airbrush was acting out. I had a broken washer, so this didn't go as smooth as I planned, but once I changed the washer, it worked fine. You just have to really take care of the airbrush and kind of troubleshoot sometimes. The mortar between the wood, I just took some Vallejo gray, light gray primer, and I highlighted every part of the house where the mortar is, and that takes a bit of aim, but I mean it looks kind of good. And since you are going to dry brush everything, it's not too much of a problem if you get some on the other parts. You can go back and fix it. And I highlighted all the stone parts also with the Vallejo light gray primer, just to get some basic highlights here and there. I picked out the chimneys also with the airbrush. If you're careful and you spray away from where you previously paint, you can actually hit quite small areas with an airbrush, and just takes a little bit of thought and practice. I took some Vallejo red primer, and I painted the roofs with it to get it a little more saturated red than Mephiston, because I think that's kind of a dull red. And I picked out the smaller parts where the roofs are, and on some buildings we actually have roof shingles that are loose on the floors. Some light gray on the roofs also, and this is what it looks like when airbrushing is done. On to the next stage, which is battle damage or burn damage. I just took some black primer and airbrushed everything that has a broken part or burned out part. This actually looks really good, and it creates the illusion of a burned out building. I try to also paint smoke where smoke has come out of the doors and the windows, so smoke goes upwards. I have to think about that when doing top floors. And this also is a good way to hide any mistakes you've done before. So this is a great tip for creating really good looking old ruins, as you can see here. And this is the stage before dry brushing, where I highlight everything, so it takes away a bit of the black also. The wood parts was dry brushed with some acrylic craft paint. I had a light brown paint that I just kind of dry brush all over the wood parts. And for the ruined buildings I used gray craft paint to dry brush almost everything, all the wood and the black parts. You want this to actually pull some colors together and make it look old, dusty and broken down. So everything can be highlighted with the same color, which saves a lot of time. The stone was also dry brushed with this gray craft paint, which is a really cheap Liquitex paint that you can buy almost everywhere. It's really good. And the roofs were dry brushed with an orange craft paint, just a kind of a rough dry brush. The roofs are so textured that it's really easy. And then everything gets a white dry brush. All areas of the models I dry brush very lightly with white. It works for terrain because terrain is farther from your eye than the miniatures. It sounds weird, but I mean, terrain pieces are so big that they need more push than miniatures sometimes. I don't know how to explain it, but it really works very good to just dry brush everything with white to make it pop. And I would never do that on a miniature, but on a house it looks kind of good, at least if you want to hurry up and get a lot of buildings painted in a short while. I think this is a good last step for the dry brushing. I painted the windows with lead belcher citadel paint to get the metal frames nice, and the copper parts were painted with Balthasar gold, and then just washed them with Nihilak oxide to create a verdigris look, and the old copper look that I think is really nice. And after that I just brushed everything with Army Painter strong tone dip that I diluted with white spirits. It makes it a little less strong and it lasts forever. And then wiped up off the excess with just a paper towel and let it dry for 24 hours. And then I just sprayed it with varnish, satin varnish. And the last step here is just some weathering powders to create dust and to get it looking really weathered and old and abandoned. So I usually do this on all models on the lower parts to create road dust or just an old looking abandoned or medieval building. It looks really good and it's very easy. Just slap it on with a big brush and then blow off the excess and apply some more varnish. And here we have the finished buildings. This is the market building, and here's the blacksmith. These are from Printable Scenery, all of them. And here we have the, I don't know what this is, kind of a tavern or something, and the governor's mansion, which is a really big and really nice building. I think it looks kind of okay, actually.